I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my business partner, colleague, and friend, Mr. Nick Hodge, who is also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 228th episode of something that a lot of you need out there, a weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk about the markets. We'll talk about what we're investing in. We'll talk about a lot of the stuff that's working. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's not out there. So I'd like to highlight the contrast. And we're going to get into some of the crazy stuff going on around. We're going to touch on it briefly because there's just so much. Nick, what are you mad about this week? Are you mad about the songs? Are you mad about Lauren Boebert or whatever her dumb name is throwing, deceased kids' pins that were handed to her by parents in the garbage in front of the parents? What are we mad about this week? It feels like everybody wants something to be mad about. I tend to be an optimistic guy. I like to look at things on the bright side. If it doesn't affect me directly, I try to help where I can. But I don't get riled up too easily. Are you mad about anything this week?
I just dropped my pen. I'm mad about that. No, I don't, I try not to get too riled up. I didn't see the Lauren Boebert thing. I saw that Mr. Biden did an ad with the other lady who's often lumped in with Boebert, the blonde-haired lady. What's her name?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wanted Congress to see Hunter Biden having consensual sex with a prostitute.
Oh, she did hold up the pictures of Hunter Biden with the prostitutes in Congress this week. Yeah, there's some stuff did happen. That was funny, but I had already forgotten about that. So, yeah, she had the actual pictures of Hunter with the prostitutes, and somebody was saying,
Hunter was like,
he was posing, wasn't he? No, that's funny though. Give it to both sides. But no, not mad. Not mad about that. But the culture wars do continue, and people continue to get sucked into them, whether it's the Bud Light or I think you were referring to the country music song that was banned by CMT this week for potentially being racist, which I listened and watched, and it isn't, but it's a dumb song and it's not that great.
I saw him live last year here in Round Rock. Jason Aldean. I saw him live. He sounded great. His wife was in the audience. Small little bar. I mean, the song itself, if let's talk about it, right? There's for context out there, a country music artist by the name of Jason Aldean put out a song that a lot of people took as a dog whistle. And I could see how you could portray it as a dog whistle. I didn't think it was racist. I did think that he knows his audience. And I did think that there's a way that you can word something where if you know, I grew up in the inner city for the most part, and I could say certain things when you're in certain neighborhoods. And if I know you're in a neighborhood, I could word a thing if I don't like you to make it to where you might see some hostilities to your personal self if I'm tied in to the right demographic in that area, right? And I think that's what people should have said as opposed to just calling it racist, because I didn't see the racism behind it. I definitely saw the little dog whistle there, like, I'm a small town boy, and I come out here with that Antifa stuff, and that's what his video meant, right? I saw the video. You come out here throwing the flag, and you'll get dealt with. We don't do that around these small parts. I understand the message. I understand people going, it's a dog whistle to his base, but who cares? Who cares? One, the guy didn't even grow up in a small town. I thought that was funny, right? Because I'm a geek, so I like knowing the background of everything. I was like, oh man, Jason Aldean, okay. He grew up in a town with like 160,000 people. So what? He's a small town boy, right? Which was hilarious. Two, of the song, I didn't find it racist. I found the video more provocative than the actual song, and I think the imagery that was used, could be used to poke at a certain side and a certain group of people of all walks of life, all colors, right? Activists in general is, I think, who he was targeting. I think he doesn't appreciate activism that involves anything other than just agreeing with the government, which again is bonkers to me because like the country music that I grew up listening to and that I enjoy to this day is typically very anti-government. It's, the real don't tread on me people, not the fake don't tread on me people that are then like, I want the government to be like my buddy. Like, I don't know when that changed in country music, but there's not a lot of us left on that front. Sturgill Simpson is one. There's a couple of others that still are like, hey, all we want to be is left alone. And you know what, Mr. Government, you're an idiot. Like, just stay away from all of this stuff. Stay away from our reproductive rights. Stay away from our guns. Do the bare minimum that you have to do and get out of my way. And I think where we are at a crossroads culture wars wise, where I think everybody is hypersensitive. And if I could just say something to our audience, people, don't fall for it. These people don't care about you. These people don't care about you. And it's timely. And I only led with this during this episode because Neil Howe's book is out. And, you know, Neil Howe, for those of you that aren't familiar, is the co-author of The Fourth Turning, which describes the period that we're in, the point in the cycle of turning, as he phrases it. And culture wars are very much a prominent part of this turning and will continue to be so, according to him, until at least 2032-ish, if I remember the number correctly. And so don't fall for it. These people don't care about us, y'all. Like the Marjorie Taylor Greens and that chick does. I don't think she even has her GED. She met her guy cheating on like the other, like it's a whole mess. And Jason Aldean, he met his wife cheating on his wife, like his new wife, cheating, like small town values. Get out of here with all that. So these people don't care. They just want to sell to you, and you clearly fall for it because the song went to #1 on the country charts immediately, right?
Right.
So that's my point.
No, you made great points there, and I'll probably clone some of what you said, but yeah, don't fall for it would be one of the things I said, right? Separate the whistle or the dog whistle from the noise, right? And dog whistle is a good way to frame it, yo. You know, it was just like Trump in some respects, in that he gave you just enough in that song, just like Trump gives you just enough to make you think that he's on your side, or you can be racist, or you can go, you know, get violent at whatever, a pride rally, or because you don't like the election results or whatever it is. So, yeah, he was very good at walking that line and not being overtly racist. But the song was bad, as I already said. And some of the things he was talking about, like holding up a convenience store and stealing a car, like that shit happens in small towns all the time, man. Watching the song, it was like there was like, what is there never crime in a small town? Like, I have a buddy who went to high school with, whose parents own a small motel in Elkton, Maryland. Then, you know, 2 years ago, a guy walks through the front door and shoots him through the plexiglass in the motel, kills the mom, and then wounds the dad. Like, shit happens in a small town. I didn't see anybody come out with, like, for vigilante justice. You know, I didn't see the militia come out and try to hunt that guy down in a small town because that don't stand around here. Like, the song was just a non sequitur. It was clearly meant just to stir up and appeal to the bases. You said, and that's exactly how I took it. So well said. And my copy of The Fourth Turning in Seer arrived this week, and let me tell you, it is intimidating. I'm finishing up another book, but it's dense, to be sure.
Okay, well, I
haven't started it yet.
Yeah, I have a couple of books that I'm finishing, so I'm waiting a week or two before I get into it, because I do want to dive into it. But I've gotten into a bad habit, Nick, of picking up 3 or 4 books at a time and reading the first half of all of them, and then in my mind thinking I get it all, and then going, okay, on to the next one. I don't want to do that with this book, because I know it's not one that will allow me to do so. So anyhow, our politicians are mostly idiots, y'all, on both sides. They all have Secret Service protection. You don't. They all have health benefits for life. You don't, despite the laws they pass preventing you from having access to the same care that they get, that we pay for, the taxpayers. There's so much more that unites us than what divides us. And the stuff that divides us doesn't have to be that divisive, to where it's life and death, everyone. And so I would just hope everybody can focus on that, no matter where you're from, what language you speak, what your political beliefs are. There's a movie I'm excited about, Oppenheimer, right? Oppenheimer. And I'm a history geek, and already that's being politicized. And I'm like, can you guys just watch the movie first? Can we wait before we make this guy a hero or a demon? Can we wait to see how he's portrayed? And, you know, can we appreciate Christopher Nolan, who's one of my favorite directors, right? Interstellar and Inception and a number of just brilliant films. But again, just the need to be so tribal, it's overdone and it's not necessary. So anyhow, most of y'all don't tune in for our social commentary. That was it right there. Let's get to the markets. Gold is boring again, right? Gold is boring again. The dollar index is back above 100. We talked last week about the dollar falling out of bed and wondering if it was going to stay below that 100 level. We know now on Thursday, July the 20th, that it's held it pretty much for the whole week. And I think, gold's retreated a bit. It's in the 1965, 1966 level. Thoughts on gold and by default silver, right? The bipolar cousin.
Yeah. The dollar's still not as strong as it was. It did come right back up to that 100 mark. Gold was really strong this week. Look, it tested the 1900 level and in the end of June, right? Heading into July, it broke below 1900 and quickly added $80 or, some 3% or something in the past 3 or 4 weeks. Probably a little overbought at this point. Remember, I was telling you it's time to buy the gold dips, and you're going to continue to get dips for a couple of reasons. One, the trees, of course, don't grow to the sky, and things get bought up for a couple of weeks, and then there's profit taking and consolidation, and they come back down a little bit. Two, the bond markets and the dollar are still wonky. Like, they're making big moves, and they typically don't make big moves. The dollar just had a big move to the downside. Rates have sort of been gyrating, all right? Going all over the place on the back of CPI, which we got last week at 3%. We'll have a Fed meeting next week, July 26th, I believe it is, where there's like over a 99% chance of another quarter point hike. So you'll likely see, short-term rates continue to be elevated and short-term rates continue to come down, which is ultimately good for gold. But we'll see what the timeline is for that to happen. So as I've been saying, gold dips down to 1900 are to be bought, both in the physical commodity or currency, gold itself, and also in gold equities, which started to catch a bid here over the past couple of weeks. So if I look at my portfolio, big things like Agnico, we're moving up, for example, even the ETFs, GDX and GDXJ, and then some of the quality and cashed up developers and explorers have been moving up as well. So good to see some signs of life there, but caution not to chase, right? Like I said, you just had an $80 move higher in gold. It's likely going to retrace some of that and give you an opportunity to buy. And as some companies might cooperate with that pullback to give you an opportunity to buy, like Newmont reported earnings today, for example, and though they declared a 40-cent per share dividend, which I think works out to something like 3.5 or 3.7%, their all-in sustaining costs were high, man.
Horrible.
And so
$14.50 an ounce, right? $14.50, $14.60 an ounce, yeah. For a major mining company, folks, those are some very, very high all-in sustaining cost.
Yeah. But remember, it's still going to have to digest Newcrest. It had a big acquisition recently. It'll incorporate those assets and will likely be okay in the medium to long term. And so that's what I mean by waiting for pullbacks to add to positions. Like I'm long Newmont, for example, and it might give you an opportunity to buy here over the coming days. And the other thing is, gold's going to make another run at 2,000 eventually. I mean, it's failed the past couple of times it's done it, but once it does break through that level, some of those margin concerns are eased, right? Your margins obviously expand even at 1,400 all-in sustaining costs when gold is at 20,050 an ounce or 2,100 an ounce. So pick your spots, be patient, and certainly let's see what happens over the next week or so here with rates and the GDP that's going to come in because, and sorry to go all the way down the macro stuff with the answer, but the data is all over the place. Like, retail sales are soft, but earnings have been okay so far. Less than 100 companies have reported from the S&P, but so far earnings growth instead of the forecasted earnings contractions. And the VIX continues to be low. So, but you have options expiration this week, and there's like over $1 trillion in SPX calls, and so we need to digest this data and see which way things are going to go.
I like it. Uranium's still boring right now. We won't get into uranium this week. Sorry, uranium bugs. It's not time yet. I'm a uranium bull as much as you are. I'm positioned for it. We'll have our day in the limelight. It's not this week. It's not going to be next week either. So we'll put uranium on pause for a second. Overall indices, the Dow made a new high. It's still being led by primarily 7 companies, right? And so I can't help but tell everyone to be cautious. It's not consequential to me because I don't dabble in the major indices. All of my exposure is in the resource space, in mining stocks, with few exceptions. And even those exceptions, like MineHub, is a tech company, a logistics company, essentially, that's looking to digitize the supply chain in the mining space. And so even that has mining company exposure. So for me, whether the Dow goes to 50,000 or 15,000 doesn't matter. But hey, look, I got uncles and aunts and cousins that have 401ks, and it's very consequential for them, right? As their primary source of exposure to the stock market. So where do you think we are with the Dow? And my spidey senses say, be cautious, because it's really easy to make new highs with 7 companies leading the charge. It's really easy to make that a U-turn really quick as well.
Yeah, I'll answer that, but let me talk about uranium for 1 second, which you wanted to hop over. The spot price is trying to consolidate at 55, so it's been over a year, or around a year, since the prices were above that level, and Cameco is sneaky at like a 52-week high, but there are some that haven't come entirely out of the doldrums from that nasty sentiment we saw in March that are still what I would say are buy rated, in my opinion. So those ones that have remained weak, I would be willing to continue to buy here. But yeah, no imminent catalyst. As far as the broad market indices, gosh, man, you pressed me last week about this bull and bear market, and I was saying the price keeps going up, and so it looks like a bull market, but a lot of the data isn't that great. And then over the past week, some of the data has actually improved, like earnings, which I was just talking about. Banks came out and had okay earnings. JP Morgan earnings were good. Bank of America earnings were good. Goldman Sachs earnings were bad, but they had pared expectations down so much that the stock actually went up on what was a very bad quarter for the company. And so the stock prices continue to go up, such that even the mainstream is starting to realize that they're at least short-term overbought, right? Like, gosh, I turned on Bloomberg during lunch yesterday and today, and they were talking about Carvana being up 1,000% year to date, right? And I guess it is, just because it literally bottom ticked like December 31st and January 1st at, I don't know, $6 or $7 or something, and it's run to almost 60. And so I guess that's right. That would be your 10 bagger.
Yeah.
But it's down from like over $200 and some dollars at the peak a year ago, right? And they don't mention that part. They talk about the stocks going up, but even they were saying, so that was yesterday, it was up like, I don't know, 15 or 30% in one day because it restructured debt or something that was dumb, right? It wasn't like a real catalyst. And then today, lo and behold, it's back down, right? And so when I was listening today, it's like, these stocks have been going up. There's some profit taking going on. It's probably time to be cautious. This is even Bloomberg saying that, right? I mentioned options exploration this week, which could really affect the VIX, and that's the end of my answer. Is you have a VIX that has been really subdued over the past couple of months, and there's really no more downside left in it. I think it's bottomed out. It's been oversold, if the VIX can be oversold, but really that's just a function of so many call options being bought on the SPX, right? That's driven that down. It feels like there's going to be some volatility in the short term, and next week or this week, by the time you see that, would be a perfect opportunity for that, given the Fed meeting and the GDP numbers that are due to come out. So we'll see. Short term overbought in the broad markets for sure, though. I see a lot of FOMO out there, and I continue to lighten up a little bit too. Like my portfolio has been on the move. You mentioned people that have 401ks and IRAs, of which I have both, and they're not entirely invested in resource stocks. I do other sectors, larger companies, etc. And mama didn't raise no fool. I've been banking some of those gains over the past couple of weeks as this market screams higher, right? It still hold over a third in cash in those accounts.
I like it. Companies that are making new highs. MineHub hasn't made a new high, but it's broken out clearly, right? It's surged this past.
It's up 90% since May.
Yeah, and coincidentally, I think we wrote a check in what, May, June for 16 cents or something like that. It closed today at 37 cents, 38 cents, and so MineHub is moving. I think we told you about that when it was at the 24, 25 cent level about a month or so ago. Clearly has some momentum. New CEO, smart as a whip, very aggressive, knows the space like the back of her hand. I'm excited for MineHub and the rest of the year and the rest of 2024. I think they're going to have some exciting partnerships. Bravo Mining, which you and I both help finance, and luckily we're able to share with our subscribers. That's close to 1,000% winner there, right? We financed it at 50 cents US. it hit a new high of $5.05 today before pulling back just a tad bit, or $5.24, apologies. So that's clearly working, and we're still awaiting the results from that survey that's going to, I think, indicate the potential for nickel massive sulfide across many kilometers underneath the Luanga deposit. I think that's on its way to $10 in a hurry. Nick, any thoughts on Bravo and MineHub, which I know we both own, and they're both in our letters?
MineHub, just for the record, I think you wrote a check at 20 cents, which came with a half warrant at 40 cents. And that financing was weird because it was originally announced at 25 cents with a 40-cent warrant. Yeah. And they closed the tranche at that level, and then they repriced the last 1 million at 20 cents, still with a 40-cent warrant. But the people that paid 25 cents a share get an extra year on that warrant. So it was a bit wonky, but it was good to get the money raised nonetheless, because obviously that put some money in the treasury. But then right behind that, Sumitomo came in and gave them $1 million in non-dilutive capital to continue to expand their operations. And so they'll still need to raise a little bit more money to get to break even, but now they can do that at higher prices and maybe with a strategic partner. So MineHub is looking good. Bravo has only been trading for around a year. I think it listed in July or August last year at, I don't know where it came out trading, between, I don't know, $1.50 and $1.70 or something. And Canadian, and is now over $5 Canadian. I mean, there's no resistance above it, right? And the share structure is tight. Management owns something like 60%. BlackRock owns, I don't know, another 5 or 6 or 7%. I don't think they've gone to 9% yet. But anyway, Sprott's in there, Rick Rule is in there, we're in there, and I haven't been a seller of any shares. And so not a lot of shares out there if people want to get in on this story. And it seems like just anecdotally, more people are getting interested. Like when I look at stock message boards and things, and like nobody was ever talking about Bravo for the past year. And in the past month or so, people are starting to get really interested because of this EM survey results that are likely going to be out over the next month. And because now they're drilling below, previous drilling. So we'll get to see truly what is underneath, and if the mineralization continues at depth. So Bravo is continuing to look good. I'd be interested to see. I was thinking about it like from the perspective of my letter. I recommended it last August, and so it would behoove people to wait until August if they did want to take profits for tax purposes, right? Yeah. Because you go from a short-term gain to a long-term gain, and so we could see some profit taking as we head into the fall, just because people will be long-term gains then instead of short-term, but. Nonetheless, I think the news results that are going to be coming out here in the next couple of months are going to propel shares higher.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk Bitcoin a bit. I know Chris Curl, our resident crypto expert, you and him had an excellent call in here yesterday that went well. And I thought, as always, right, it was really, really insightful, and it was really good on my end of it to hear his enthusiasm for where we are in that space. I'm crypto agnostic. I still haven't dabbled in the sector. I was wanting a Bitcoin. It got away from me, and I don't want to chase it at these levels because I hate chasing things. But anyhow, what's your take on crypto and Bitcoin in the space right now? It's looking good.
Yeah, he's clearly more bullish. Prices have gone up, not just for Bitcoin, but for some altcoins in the past couple of weeks that have breathed a bit of enthusiasm back into the sector. And you've got to remember, this is a sector that's been beaten down pretty hard. I mean, Bitcoin was over 60 grand and went down to 15 grand or so over the past year and a half. So there was really some negative sentiment out there. So to have Bitcoin double over the past couple of months back to $30,000, again, has a bit of an enthusiasm in the sector. And then there's been some court rulings of late. I mentioned last week the SEC losing a lawsuit, trying to get Ripple declared as a security. And then the shares of Ripple sort of surged after that, along with some other altcoins. So, the halving is for Bitcoin is going to come next year, and then Chris sees a really bullish period in 24 and 2025. I'll give you the same answer I always give you. I'm really long-term bullish on Bitcoin, and I own some myself, and would like to buy more too. I'm not convinced that the bear market is over yet, but we'll see. Like gold, once this Fed moves past the rate hike cycle and starts to pause and cut, I think Bitcoin could really do well. I'm just not entirely sure when that's going to be yet. And I guess that's the same across the entire commodity space. Sorry to transgress for a second there.
Transgress away, Nick.
Yeah.
I won't be offended.
Question, but even the CRB commodity index has been putting in higher lows over the past month or so. I'm not sure if a short-term bottom is in, but when I look at things like crude oil at 77 for the first time since April, or I look at some of the soft commodities like wheat being up big here over the past couple of weeks, even uranium, which I mentioned consolidating at 55, commodity prices have been able to catch a bid and are looking to consolidate a bit higher. The only contra signal there is copper, which is shied away from $4 again. And I guess the point I was trying to get across, or what I've been weighing in my mind is this the pivot, right? Are they getting priced in because the pivot is here and the Fed is now going to pause after this rate hike, and there's going to be more liquidity in the system, and eventually they're going to cut, and that's going to lead to a softer dollar, which is obviously good for commodities and precious metals and emerging markets? Or, and I don't have the answer to this, so it's just an either or for right now, or has the recession just been pushed far enough out that there's now a short-term window of time where commodities can do okay before they're then sold down again ahead of a real recession that materializes sometime next year? And I'm not sure what the answer is to that yet, so sorry.
No. I think that's an insightful answer, and it's refreshing that, oh my God, we don't know everything. Like, everybody seems to know everything apparently, right? I tell you who also doesn't know everything is Rio Tinto, right? I was going to ask you about inflation. We talked rates a bit. We talked the overall indices, and you touched on it a bit here in your previous comment, but Rio Tinto's having to review its investment in its Rincon project, right? They were going to pony up $140 million for a processing plant. And when they went to do a review of what that actually was going to cost, well, surprise, surprise, it's not $140 million anymore because, ta-da, inflation. And so, this could affect supply. And I wrote about it yesterday for Daily Profit Cycle, how there's so many projections about the supply, this lithium supply that's going to be coming online. And it's almost as if the armchair analysts that sit behind a computer have never been to a site visit, have never actually allocated any capital to the space, just believe that because a company says that supply A is coming online in X amount of time, that you can just plug that into a data spreadsheet and get an answer back as to how much supply you're going to have. And ta-da, you just know that's how it's going to be. The mining space is going to throw you curveballs left and right. I don't care how long you've been in this space. And if you haven't actually risked capital and know what that feels like or looks like, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. And I think for the people, the Kathy Woods of the people of ARK Fund, who, a few months ago said that the lithium boom was over and she saw a glut in the next year and a half or two, they're going to be proven drastically wrong. And not only that, they're going to cost their subscribers and the people that actually trust them with their funds and capital a lot of money on the wrong side. Not just money they're going to miss out on, but money they're going to lose. Kathy, I should say, because I always bring her up. I'll commend her. She bought a uranium ETF here in the past week. So she does see a bullish uranium bull cycle coming. She no longer believes in the lithium bull narrative. And it's funny because she actually missed out on the lithium bull narrative. And I find that a lot of the people that weren't picking companies like you, Mr. Hodge, in 2016, and like myself subsequently, the people that missed that run up and that haven't been profiting tend to be the first ones to kind of poo-poo the lithium bull market and say, nah, I think this is overpriced. Nah, I think this is over. It's always funny how that works. It's funny to me.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add there. On the inflation concerns, I guess that's happening across the board, whether it's gold companies who have gone from PEA to PFS, and all of a sudden their costs are inflated in their PFS. To other sectors as well. I mean, inflation is a real concern, and prices are much higher now than they were 2 years ago when previous studies were done. So that's just par for the course. It's a function of reality. you talked about Rio Tinto and Rincon, which is a big lithium project. But I see this all the time, like, and we've talked about it on this podcast before. Like, there was a big deposit of phosphorus found in Sweden. I think it was like 115 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle or something like that, and that's been getting a lot of traction over the past couple of weeks. Stories in Reuters and the AP, and then the NPR jumps on about how this can supply all the phosphorus we need for solar panels. And these come around a lot. I think there was a lithium deposit discovered in Iran a couple of months ago, and I mentioned some big rare earths deposit that was discovered in, I always forget if it was Norway or Finland, and these numbers are big, because it's like, or just look at the one in California, the Salton Sea that was on 60 Minutes for lithium, right? These numbers are big, and it's like, oh, this one thing can provide all the lithium necessary for the U.S. for the next however many years, or half the uranium for the next year, or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, but the average time, and I know this because I was just watching a video that I helped script for you that had the average time to bring a lithium mine online is like, 4 to 5 years just to get to like a permitting decision, right?
Yeah.
And then several more years for the regulatory bodies to look at it and get public opinion and weigh in, etc. I mean, I often talk about, Midas Gold or Perpetua, which has been in permitting for, I always say, as long as my daughter's been here. So going on 7 years now, and hopefully they get a decision later this year. Or, I heard Rick Rule talking about copper earlier this week, and he was talking about the Resolution in Arizona that's been in permitting for over 2 decades. And so just to point at something and say, there's enough metals there for X or Y or whatever it is, isn't the same as proving the reserve, de-risking the reserve, financing the mine, permitting the mine, building the mine, extracting the materials. And we probably sound like broken records, but that takes a very long time. And that's why there's going to be a secular bull market in these metals for a very long time to come, likely into the next decade.
I will say this: profitable broken records are much more fun to listen to than not profitable broken records. So there is that, right? I'll take that every day of the week. What are you watching in the markets this week, Nick?
Well, by the time you watch this, it's going to be Fed meeting time and GDP time. So interested to see the market reaction. Pretty sure the Fed is going to raise another 1/4 point. It would be shocking if they didn't. Like I said, excuse me, it's being priced in over 99%. So looking for the market reaction to that. Specifically the movement in the short term and the long-term bond yields. So you've had a reinversion of the curve over the past week. It was like over a percent inverted, and then the CPI came and bond yields got wonky, and it was only like 0.8 inverted, and now it's back to over a percent inverted. So I want to watch those bond yields and the dollar response. And then the GDP number too. There's forecasts all over the place from 0 all the way up to 2 or 3%. So really interested to see where that Q2 GDP number lands next week, and expect that there's going to be some movement around those decisions and those reports.
Yeah, personally, I'll be watching for Bravo mining news. I'm looking forward to that. Patriot continues to consolidate, right? It pulls back nearly every day, just a little bit, and it's down to like the $14 level on the Canadian side of things due to lack of news, the fire ban, the lack of drilling. We have a maiden resource estimate, which is, if Blair comes through, should be out within the next 7 to 10 days, and I expect that to be a catalyst. I expect that to also start inviting major companies to be more public about their desire to get in bed with Patriot Battery Metals. I think that'll put a spark in the stock. And then obviously I want to see drilling resume, right? I want the fires to abate just so people are safe. But that aside, the capitalist in me wants to see drilling resume because of the excitement around the exploration exploration upside that Corvette still has. So definitely looking forward to that. I'll tell you a little rumor that I heard, and this will be interesting for those of you that check this out for the Patriot gossip and takes that I have. I heard that the shorts that are shorter at $8.
Canadian.
Correct. If that's
true. Yeah, I don't see
true,
them getting it down to $8. Yeah.
I don't either. Now, if that's true, one of two things, right? They have a solid plan. They'll get it to 8, and then they'll buy it back up to 12, and then it's going to run on the maiden resource estimate. And then again, I absolutely am fully convinced that we're going to get a chemical company, one of these groups come in and say, hey, we want to be first at the table, whether it's a downstream deal, a takeoff deal, whatever it is. I think that's right around the corner. I think it's right after the maiden resource estimate. I continue to insist that maiden resource estimate is going to come in no less than 100 million tons, roughly 1.4% on the lithium side of things. And then again, if you take that, that cutoff and you bring it down and you go to 1.2 or 1, then you'll start seeing the upside there. But look, I've said it before. I said it last week. I'll say it again. Retail got the stock to where it's at now. It's the funds now and the majors and the deals, the offtake deals that are going to be signed that are going to take it to the next level before it gets really, really fun again. So, hey, if you're short at $8, I wish you all the luck out there. And either way, I say it every week. It doesn't matter. You could take it to $8. I'll be sitting on my shares laughing and waiting for that turn back upwards. So I'm watching for those two things. And I'm also watching the NASDAQ just for kicks. No dog, no horse in the race, no dog I'm betting on there. But the NASDAQ was down 2% today while the market was up, right? The Dow was up, the S&P was down briefly, but the NASDAQ being down 2% after being a leader here for the past month or two, several months, that was an interesting anomaly to me. And I know it's, end of the month and options expiration, but I want to see if that continues. That could get ugly real quick.
Yeah, there's definitely more downside than upside. There's some of the stocks in the NASDAQ are still, short-term bullish. But two things I was just going to mention real quick is some of these companies are locked out. One of the big catalysts over the past couple of years has been share buybacks, right? But companies can't buy back their shares during earnings periods, so they're blacked out for a period of time, like when they're coming into and out of earnings. So that's one reason you don't have the support of companies buying back shares. And the other reason is Taiwan Semi warned this week on chip production, right? Remember a couple of weeks ago, AI was, going to the moon. It was adding to GDP. It was going to create growth in all these industries. NVIDIA rocketed, however much NVIDIA rocketed because they make chips that are, used in computers and AI, et cetera. And Taiwan Semiconductor, which supplies chips to Apple and other big tech companies, came out this week and essentially warned, this growth ain't going to be everything that we thought it was and that it was purported to be over the past couple of months. So Taiwan Semi was down 5%, I think it was, today as we record this podcast, Thursday the 20th. And I think that was spilling over into the rest of the sector, just as we talked about earlier, right? The profit taking, right? People realizing that these markets are a bit overbought.
You can't just say AI and go up every time?
Not forever. You could a couple of weeks ago.
Supposed to remind you all to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to get all of the updates and market commentary, not just from Mr. Hodge and I, but from our talented group of insightful editors that cover everything from the major indices to the crypto space. That's all I got this week. Mr. Hodge, anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, that's it. I'm good. Everybody have a good week. Be kind to each other.
Have a great week out there. Be safe to each other, everybody. Be kind to each other and be safe with each other, right? I'm Gerardo Del Real along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World number 228. Take care out there, everyone.
See you.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.